This is the back of the left atrium. Notice the 4 pulmonary veins that open into the back of the left atrium. Two on each side. This is a superior pulmonary vein, and this is an inferior pulmonary vein from the left lung, the same from the right lung. This is the right pulmonary artery passing horizontally behind the ascending aorta and superior vena cava, just above the left atrium. So the left atrium is situated between the right pulmonary artery above and the coronary sinus below. This is the right side of the heart. This is the right atrium, with the right auricle projecting from it. At the root of the auricle, there is a shallow vertical sulcus called sulcus terminalis, which extends from the opening of the superior vena cava above to the opening of the inferior vena cava below. It corresponds to the crista terminalis inside the right atrium. This is the left border of the heart. Notice the left ventricle and auricle of the left atrium above it. This is the projecting aortic arch forming what is called the aortic knuckle. This is the orifice of the superior vena cava, and this is the orifice of the inferior vena cava. This is the valve of the inferior vena cava separating it from the opening of the coronary sinus. This is the orifice of the coronary sinus, just to the left of the inferior vena cava. This is the right atrioventricular orifice, just to the left of the orifice of the coronary sinus. The orifice of the coronary sinus lies between the orifice of the inferior vena cava and the right atrioventricular orifice. Notice that the right atrioventricular orifice admits the tips of 3 fingers. Notice that the posterior part of the cavity is smooth and is called sinus venerum. It is derived from the sinus venosus of the fetus. The anterior part of the cavity is rough and is derived from the fetal right atrium. The rough part is due to the musculi pectinati. The musculi pectinati are separated from the smooth part by the crista terminalis. This is the interatrial septum. Showing the fossa ovalis which is an oval depression. It is surrounded by an arched margin called annulus ovalis. This is the cavity of the right ventricle. This is the cavity of the right ventricle. Notice the smooth upper part which forms the infundibulum. It leads to the pulmonary orifice, which is guarded by 3 semilunar cusps, which are convex towards the ventricle and concave towards the pulmonary trunk. Its lower part is rough by the trabeculae carni and the papillary muscles. These are the ridges of the trabeculae carni. This is the anterior papillary muscle attached to the anterior wall. Notice the septo-marginal trabecular or moderator band as it runs from the septum to the base of the anterior papillary muscle. This moderator band lodges the right branch of the atrioventricular bundle. This is the inferior papillary muscle attached to the inferior wall. This is the septal papillary muscles attached to the interventricular septum. These papillary muscles are attached to the cusps of the atrioventricular orifice by chordae tendineae. These are the cusps of the right atrioventricular orifice. They are 3 cusps This is the cavity of the left ventricle. Its upper part is fibrous and is called the aortic vestibule. Notice that the interventricular septum is bulging towards the right ventricle. It lies obliquely so that the right ventricle lies in front and to the right of the left ventricle. The lower part of the cavity of the left ventricle shows the trabeculae carni and 2 papillary muscles. This is the anterior papillary muscle attached to the anterior wall. This is the inferior papillary muscle attached to the inferior wall. Notice the chordae tendineae attached to the 2 cusps of the mitral valve. The left atrioventricular orifice is guarded by 2 cusps only and admits the tip of 2 fingers. This valve is called the mitral valve. This is the aortic orifice, which is guarded by 3 semilunar cusps. Compare the thick wall of the left ventricle with the thin wall of the right ventricle. This is the cavity of the left atrium. It is smooth and receives the 4 pulmonary veins. Its auricle is rough because of the musculi pectinati. This is the left atrioventricular orifice. It admits 2 fingers and is called the mitral valve. Here is the posterior mediastinum after removal of the heart. This is the thoracic duct, which lies behind the esophagus. Between the descending aorta and the azygous vein. It ascends in the posterior mediastinum to enter the superior mediastinum, where it lies on the left side of the esophagus. The thoracic duct begins in the abdomen from the cisterna chyli and enters the thorax through the aortic opening of the diaphragm. This is the esophagus, running downwards and to the left. This is the thoracic aorta. This is the azygous vein. This is the termination of the hemiazygous vein as it crosses the midline to end in the azygous vein. This is the trachea, which lies completely in the superior mediastinum. It is in front of the esophagus. This is the left recurrent laryngeal nerve. Between the trachea and the esophagus.